On August 25, 2020, a chilling tragedy unfolded in Avondale. A 32-year-old woman, Ronica Richburg, was found lifeless in her apartment. Ronica was a mother of two beautiful children, a 4-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl, who now face a future without her. Just days earlier, she had taken a step many considered the ultimate act of self-defense. She secured a restraining order against a man. But instead of safety, what followed was a nightmare no one saw coming. Who was responsible, and why did it happen? The answers to these questions will not only shock you, but challenge everything you thought about protection and justice. This is the story of Ronica Richburg. Before we begin, we would love to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Ronica Richburg, as well as everyone affected by the tragic incident. This story takes us all the way to Avondale. Avondale is a small community on the west bank of the Mississippi River in Louisiana. Avondale may seem quiet, but its crime rate tells a different story. With incidents of violence above the national average, safety is a growing concern here. And in this case, even a legal order couldn't prevent the unthinkable. Ronica Richburg was born on September 7, 1987, in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. She grew up in a tight-knit community, surrounded by family and friends who adored her. From a young age, Ronica had a natural kindness that made people feel at ease. Her determination was evident in everything she did. Little did she know, her light was about to be forever dimmed. Ronica's family was her anchor, especially her two children, a 4-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. To them, she wasn't just a mother, she was their whole world. She was a lifelong resident of Jefferson Parish, where she graduated from East Jefferson High School. Education was important to her, and she didn't stop after high school. She went on to earn an associate's degree in medical billing and coding from Herzing University. While juggling school and raising her children, Ronica found her true passion: entrepreneurship. She turned her talent for hair braiding into a thriving business, proudly becoming the CEO of NOLA Braidhead. Her work ethic, skill, and ability to connect with people allowed her to build a long-lasting clientele, but she had more ambitions. Ronica also launched a children's clothing company, balancing her career and motherhood with grace. To her, everything she did was for her children. They were her lifeline, and she was theirs. Her life revolved around making sure they were happy and cared for, but little did she know that beneath her success and dedication to her family, a storm was brewing, a storm that would change everything. For the last 7 years of her life, Ronica was in a relationship with Lloyd El Salvador Jones, a 42-year-old man from Harvey. At first, it seemed like any other relationship. They even had a child together. Ronica's second, a 4-year-old son who brought joy into her life. Everything appeared to be moving in the right direction, but that happiness was only an illusion. Things took a dark turn, and life as she knew it would never be the same. Their ups and downs were no secret, especially on social media, where their struggles played out for everyone to see. By May 2020, Ronica had had enough. She made the difficult decision to leave Jones and move into her mother's house in Avondale, hoping for a fresh start. But that decision would have consequences she couldn't have imagined. According to reports, Jones didn't take the breakup well. Ronica accused him of abusive behavior that escalated over time. He allegedly smashed her car windshield, broke multiple cell phones, and damaged other property. But it didn't stop there. Jones was accused of stalking her mother's house, constantly calling her phone, showing up unannounced, and even following her across a bridge. His harassment extended to her friends, showing up at their homes without warning. And because of all this, Ronica lived in constant fear. She turned to the police for help, calling them at least 3 times in the 2 months leading up to her death. But despite her pleas, no arrests were ever made. Feeling cornered, she sought protection through the courts, filing for a restraining order against Jones. The order was granted, set to last until at least September 9, 2020, when a hearing would determine whether it should be extended. Ronica hoped this would finally bring her some peace, but peace was not in her future. Just 6 days after securing the restraining order, the police were called to her home again. This time, it wasn't for harassment or property damage. It was for something far worse. It was a quiet Tuesday evening on August 25, 2020, around 7:10 p.m., when the unimaginable happened. The Richburg home on Millie Drive, where laughter and love usually filled the air, became a place of horror. The man Ronica Richburg had tried so hard to keep away from her life, Lloyd Jones, arrived at the door. He was there under the guise of dropping off their 4-year-old son, LJ. Her mother, Kim Richburg, opened the door just enough for the boy to slip inside. But that small crack in the door would change everything forever. Jones wasn't there to just drop off his child. He asked for Ronica repeatedly. His tone grew more demanding with each refusal. While Kim tried to close the door, Jones forced his way in. He kicked it open again and again until he was standing in the entryway. "Where's Ronica?" he demanded. Kim's voice trembled as she told him she's doing hair, but he wasn't satisfied with her answer. His determination to confront Ronica grew stronger, and in that moment, the entire house was thrown into chaos. Ronica, who was a hairstylist, was in the back of the house with a client, completely unaware of the storm brewing at the front door. The commotion grew louder as Jones barged into the house, causing a ripple of fear throughout. Kim's boyfriend, Daryl Stewart, was also present in the house at the time. When he heard the noise, he rushed to the living room. Right at that moment, the confrontation escalated into violence. Jones pulled out a gun and started shooting. In doing so, Daryl was hit in the neck and both arms, his body collapsing under the force of the bullets. The loud sound of gunfire sent everyone scrambling for safety. Ronica, terrified, ran to the bathroom to hide, while her client dashed into a bedroom, locking the door behind them. But Jones wasn't done yet. His rage drove him straight to Ronica, who was desperately trying to find a safe place. Jones kicked open the bathroom door and aimed his gun. There, he shot Ronica. But even after shooting her, Jones's anger wasn't extinguished. He stormed back into the living room, his rage far from over. Daryl, bleeding and in immense pain, lay helpless on the floor. But then, in a moment of sheer courage, Kim did the unthinkable. Fueled by desperation, she threw herself onto Jones's back, trying to stop him. She fought with everything she had, her love for her family giving her strength. But Jones overpowered her, broke free, and bolted out the door. He jumped into his dark-colored GMC pickup truck and sped off, leaving a house filled with chaos and heartbreak. Kim, who was shaking and terrified, immediately called 911 as she begged for help to save what was left of her family. When deputies arrived at the scene, the horror was undeniable. The Richburg home had turned into a crime scene. Inside, they found 2 victims. Ronica was lying lifeless. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Daryl, on the other hand, miraculously survived the attack despite his multiple gunshot wounds. He was rushed to the hospital for treatment, his injuries severe but not life-threatening. After this tragic incident, the police began piecing together what had happened, but the weight of the tragedy was impossible to ignore. This was more than a crime. It was a complete betrayal by someone Ronica had once trusted. The restraining order, the calls for help, none of it had been enough to protect her. Now, a mother was gone, leaving her 2 children without the woman who had been their entire world. As the investigation unfolded, the search for Jones began. He was no longer just a man with a troubled past. He was a fugitive, responsible for an unspeakable act of violence. For Ronica's family and friends, time felt frozen, and every passing second without an arrest only deepened their pain. As the days stretched on, the authorities launched a massive manhunt. Jones wasn't just wanted for first-degree murder, he was also facing charges of attempted murder, home invasion, obstruction of justice, and violating a protective order with a firearm. But he remained out of reach. Meanwhile, Ronica's family struggled to cope with the devastating loss. Her mother, Kim, who had been there during the horrifying attack, was now carrying the unbearable weight of grief and guilt.
She didn't bother nobody. She didn't get in no trouble. All she wanted to do was braid hair and take care of her children.
She turned to social media, posting heartfelt messages about her daughter and expressing her frustration over Jones's continued freedom. Their shared son, LJ, only 4 years old, began asking heartbreaking questions no child should ever have to ask. Why did my dad do that to my mama? He wondered. But the pain wasn't confined to just her family. Ronica's death deeply affected the community. Her business, Nola Braidhead, became a gathering place for condolences. Friends, clients, and strangers alike flooded her Facebook page with messages of love and sorrow. Many described her as an amazing mother and a talented braider. The outpouring of love and grief from her community made it clear how deeply she was cherished. But no amount of kind words or heartfelt tributes could undo the tragedy or bring her back to the friends and family who needed her most. Ronica was laid to rest on Saturday, 5th of September 2020. She was surrounded by loved ones who mourned not just her death, but the vibrant life she should have continued to lead. That Monday, her relatives gathered once more, this time to mark what would have been her 33rd birthday. Instead of celebrating with her, they were left to honor her memory. The authorities, however, didn't give up. The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office made public pleas for help, urging anyone with information about Jones's whereabouts to come forward. A $5,000 reward was offered for any lead that could bring him to justice. But as of now, Jones remains at large, and until Lloyd Jones is brought to justice, the wounds will remain open and the search for closure will continue. While Ronica Richburg's case shows the devastating consequences of trusting the wrong person, the next story is equally heartbreaking. It's about another woman whose life was tragically taken by someone she once loved, followed by a shocking betrayal that no one saw coming. She had her whole life ahead of her that was cut in the most tragic way. But what made this discovery so heartbreaking was that she was 4 months pregnant with her third child. Even more chilling, her 2 young children were inside the house when it happened. But the most chilling part is that the person responsible was someone she trusted the most. With 2 toddlers in the house and another life on the way, the shocking details surrounding her death left everyone heartbroken. This is the story of Tashika Young. This story takes us all the way to Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville is a city known for its vibrant culture and stretched neighborhoods. While Jacksonville recently reported its lowest number of homicides in a century, with 83 in 2024, the crime rate still stands higher than the national average. In this case, however, the numbers don't tell the full story. What happened here was deeply personal, and the details will leave you shocked. Tashika Renette Young was born on February 13, 1988, in Jacksonville, Florida. She was a vibrant, ambitious woman whose love for life was evident in everything she did. Known to her friends as someone who loved unconditionally, Tashika had a unique ability to make people feel seen and supported. Her friends described her as a cheerleader, someone who brought out the best in everyone around her. She truly changed lives, but what no one could imagine was how hers would be tragically cut short. She was more than just a mother to her 2 children. She was their entire world. Her days were filled with caring for her toddlers, balancing the chaos of parenthood with her boundless energy and warmth. Her children adored her, and her love for them was immeasurable. But Tashika was also a woman of ambition and passion, someone who made a name for herself in Jacksonville's vibrant radio scene. Tashika, known as Ty Sheeks on the airwaves, was a beloved radio personality at Power 106.1, a true hip-hop station in Jacksonville.
So I want to know who really leaked the tape if they were the only 2 that had it.
See, sometimes I just have to come out and tell the truth because in 2017 I said I was not going to lie anymore.
She interviewed celebrities, connected with local businesses, and showcased local artists. And that's how she became a well-known figure in her community. Her voice brought joy to countless listeners, and her talent made her a household name. But as much as she loved her career, there was something she loved more: her family. Eventually, Tashika decided to step away from her radio career to focus on raising her children. She shifted her energy to teaching, which was a career she embraced wholeheartedly. With a bachelor's and master's degree from Bethune-Cookman University, she found joy in shaping young minds while spending more time with her own children. For Tashika, this was one of the best decisions she had ever made. But life doesn't always follow the plans we make. Her relationship with the father of her children, 33-year-old Bercy Jerome Armstrong Jr., started with love and promise. She was expecting her 3rd child, which was a moment that should have been filled with excitement and anticipation. But over time, that relationship turned toxic. According to her friends, Tashika became a victim of domestic violence. She suffered in silence for a long time, hoping things would change. But the person she once trusted began to betray her in the worst way. In May 2021, Tashika reached out to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office after Armstrong harmed her. She had photos of her injuries to prove her case, but the officers dismissed it as a lover's quarrel. They decided not to press charges, and Tashika, blinded by her love and fear, didn't push further. Her friends tried to convince her to leave him, to prioritize her safety and that of her children. But love has a way of clouding judgment.
You're deep in love and you are blinded by love. You can't see those things. So you kind of push them away.
She stayed, hoping things would improve, until they didn't. In July 2022, just weeks before her death, Tashika confided in her mother. Armstrong had allegedly threatened her with a weapon and sent her disturbing messages. That moment changed everything for Tashika. She decided to end the relationship and asked him to leave. Armstrong moved out and returned to his parents' house. For the first time in years, it seemed like she might finally reclaim her peace. But peace was short-lived. 2 weeks later, her mother grew concerned when she couldn't reach Tashika. They spoke daily, so the silence was alarming. But what made it worse was a call from Armstrong claiming he couldn't reach her either, and so something didn't feel right. Her mother's instincts told her to go to Tashika's apartment at the Mission Point Apartments on Biscayne Boulevard. Right at that moment, her life changed forever. It was Saturday, July 23, 2022, around 5:30 p.m., when Tashika Young's mother arrived at her daughter's apartment at the Mission Point Apartments on Biscayne Boulevard. The first thing she noticed was the damage to the door threshold. It looked as though someone had kicked it in with force. Her heart raced as she stepped further inside, calling out for her daughter. Instead, she was met by the sight of Tashika's 2 children, just 1 and 3 years old, wandering the apartment. They were too young to understand the gravity of the situation, but their innocent presence made the next discovery even more devastating. When she reached the bedroom, she found Tashika unresponsive. The vibrant woman who had brought joy to so many lives was lying lifeless, her body still. Right at that moment, her mother's world shattered. She called 911 as she begged for help. When the authorities arrived, they confirmed what her mother already knew. Tashika was gone. She had been pronounced dead at the scene, and the investigation immediately began.
Upon their arrival, officers confirmed the presence of an unresponsive adult black female inside of the residence. Those officers summoned the assistance of Jacksonville Fire Rescue personnel, who responded and pronounced the female deceased at the scene.
Officers from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office worked tirelessly to piece together what had happened. But one thing was clear: this wasn't an accident or a random act of violence. This was something very personal. The children's father, Bercy Jerome Armstrong Jr., soon became the focus of the investigation. He returned to the apartment while police were on the scene and was immediately detained for questioning. But what happened next revealed a dark and troubling history. Detectives downloaded Armstrong's phone, uncovering a series of text messages and photos that documented a toxic relationship marked by violence and control. But Armstrong denied any involvement. He claimed he hadn't been to the apartment since July 13, 2022, a full 10 days before Tashika's death. His story, however, didn't add up. Armstrong admitted to having a key to Tashika's apartment, but when police searched his parents' home, where he had been staying, the investigation took a chilling turn. Hidden behind the stairs, officers found clothing stained with what appeared to be blood. Nearby, they discovered ammunition and another weapon concealed in a hole at the base of the stairs. Each piece of evidence brought detectives closer to the truth, and the truth was horrifying. With the weight of the evidence mounting against him, Armstrong was brought back in for further questioning. His denials couldn't stand up to the findings, and detectives eventually charged him with second-degree murder. A judge later determined there was substantial probable cause to hold him without bond, setting his arraignment date for August 16, 2022. For Tashika's family, the arrest brought a small sense of relief, but no closure. The damage was already done. As the trial began, the courtroom became a space of unbearable emotions. Family and friends relived the tragedy through the evidence presented, photos, text messages, and the haunting testimony of detectives and witnesses. A road worker who found Tashika's phone discarded by the side of the road testified, adding yet another piece to the puzzle. But the most emotional moment came when Tashika's mother, Olivia Young, took the stand.
Her baby girl was holding her mom's hand, and Bercy was in the bed just shaking.
Olivia spoke with a quiet strength. Recounting the moment she found her daughter's lifeless body, she described the pain of walking into that room, knowing her daughter was gone, while her 2 young grandchildren were left behind in the aftermath. She said it felt as though Tashika was standing beside her, urging her to stay strong.
God is lifting me up, and I can hear my baby girl saying, "Okay, mama, you're doing good. You got them 2 babies to take care of."
Therefore, she shared her story with courage, determined to honor her daughter's memory. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning their verdict, guilty of second-degree murder on both counts. Armstrong's conviction carried a minimum sentence of 25 years and the possibility of life in prison. For Tashika's family, the verdict brought a sense of relief, but it was tempered by the weight of their loss. As her cousin Anthony Cobb said, "It's bittersweet. We lost 2 lives, but justice was served."
Bittersweet moment. It's bitter to the point that we did lose 2 lives, but it's sweet to the point that justice was served today, and we are elated that justice was served today.
The community that celebrated Tashika in life came together to mourn her death. Hundreds of tributes poured in on social media, remembering her as a spirited, ambitious, and loving person. Power 106.1, the radio station where she had worked for years, honored her memory, describing her as an integral part of their family. The posts echoed what many already knew. Tashika was a beacon of light, someone who gave so much love to those around her, but that love had also made her vulnerable. Her friends shared stories of trying to help her leave Armstrong. They had seen the warning signs, but Tashika's unconditional love made it hard for her to walk away. One friend later shared that they had seen the signs and feared the worst, but when the tragedy finally struck, the pain was overwhelming.
We kept telling her to leave. We knew it was coming, but we didn't, it just when it came, it just really hurt.
The loss was made even harder by the thought that it might have been prevented. And yet, Tashika's legacy of love continues to inspire. On August 5th, 2022, Tashika's family and friends gathered at the historic Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Church to say their final goodbyes. The funeral was open to the public, and the family asked attendees to wear purple, which is a symbol of domestic violence awareness.
I'm going to remember her as not just my friend, but as the mother that she was. She was more than a radio personality. She was more than a daughter. She was definitely a mother, and those kids are going to miss her a lot.
It was a somber yet beautiful tribute to a life that had touched so many. Her children, now in the care of her family, were at the center of everyone's thoughts. The community came together to support Tashika's family, offering donations of clothes, toys, and funds to help secure a future for her 2 young children. The generosity and love poured in from all corners, showing just how much she was cherished. Even in their grief, her family and friends shared a powerful message, a reminder for anyone facing similar struggles to reach out, ask for help, and never feel ashamed.
This is one of those stories, unfortunately, that teaches you that if you're going through something and you need help, ask for help. And at the same time, don't be ashamed of it. Don't be embarrassed about what you're going through.
Her children are now being cared for by family members who are accepting donations to cover expenses like daycare and clothing. Contributions can be sent through Cash App to her mother using the username $Olivia S. Young. It's a small way to continue supporting the family and ensuring her children feel the love Tashika always gave them. Tashika's story leaves us with so many unanswered questions. Why wasn't more done to protect her when the warning signs were so clear? Perhaps, if there were precautions, could this tragedy be prevented? Thank you so much once again for watching another video by Wednesday Crime. If you like the way we bring to you stories or you learned something new today, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. As always, remember to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Perhaps someone learns from your experience or advice. I will talk to you again in another video. It's bye for now.